UFC Fight Night, Pavlovich versus Blaydes. Every single fight to make next for all of the winners and all of the losers for every single fight on the card. We're not only doing the main card, not only doing the important or big name fighters, we're doing every single fighter on this UFC Fight Night. Comment who you guys think everybody should fight next. Who should Blaydes, Sergei Pavlovich, Bruno Silva, who should all of these guys fight next? Comment down below, like and subscribe, and let's get into the first one. Brady Hiestand coming off a very nice win in his last fight against Dana Batjadil, beat Fernie Garcia, and then lost to Ricky Tercios. He's 2-0 in the UFC, a really close wins or comeback victories. And you got a guy in Raul Rosas Jr., who is coming off a loss to Christian Rodriguez, but Brady and Raul Rosas both have similar experience as MMA fighters. They're both young up-and-comers in this bantamweight division. I do like the sound of two solid wrestlers and grapplers going out there and testing themselves early on in their UFC careers. I think that'd be a very fun fight. Second one, the loser of the first fight of the night on a 3-fight losing streak is Dana Batjadil, who's another fighter on a big losing streak. That is going to be Trevin Jones right there. I mean, he's on a 4-fight losing streak, but gosh dang is he exciting. And gosh dang is Dana Batjadil a very exciting fighter as well. So let's put an exciting fight together. Dana Batjadil versus Trevin Jones is a fun fight to make. Then we got William Gomes, who got a very close win on Francis Marshall in his last fight. That does sound like a fun one to make with Sung Woo Choi, who is on a 3-fight losing streak. You got to give William Gomes a little bit of a step up, and you got to give Sung Woo Choi a little bit of a step down, because he's been fighting some very legit guys recently. So Sung Woo Choi versus William Gomes sounds like a fun one, in my opinion. Francis Marshall, he did lose his last fight. He's 1-1 in the UFC. You give him a little bit of a UFC veteran who's 2-4 in the UFC octagon, a solid kickboxer in Shane Young. That's going to go out there and make it a very fun fight indeed, because it's going to test Francis Marshall striking a whole lot in the fight, but it's also going to show just how good Shane Young can improve his wrestling and grappling and potentially make a comeback in the UFC octagon. I do like the sound of that. And we got Muhammad Usman beating Junior Tafa by a decision, out wrestling him in the second and third round. Chris Barnett, if he's losing an MMA fight, it's usually him getting out wrestled and out grappled a little bit. So this would be a good test for Chris Barnett. Also, if he's able to defend those takedowns, yeah, put this on the prelims of a pay-per-view, and gosh dang, that is a very fun fight. Junior Tafa versus Lucas Brzezeski, two guys that really struggle with wrestlers and grapplers in this heavyweight division. Put them against each other. That does sound fun. That does sound like a very solid striking match on the prelims of a pay-per-view. Very exciting fight. Lucas Brzezeski, Junior Tafa is a banger in the heavyweight division. Norma, give her the title shot. Why not? After Nunes is done beating Juliana Pena in the trilogy, give her easy money, co-main event of literally any pay-per-view. In the featherweight division, boom, easy money Amanda Nunes. Carol Rosa, we're going to give her outside of the top 15 girl, considering Norma is number 13 in the UFC bantamweight division. Kind of got to give her someone outside the top 15. And Chelsea Chandler is outside of the top 15 there. She's coming off a dominant win on Julia Soliarenko. They both have kind of similar styles in terms of their wrestling, grappling. Why not? Why not do that one there? Next one is going to be Rani Yahya. Retirement, that's all I'm going to say. Montel Jackson, we're going to give him that top 15 fight against Said Nurmagomedov. He is at number 15. He's coming off a loss. Montel's on a solid win streak. It's kind of a spot to really set in stone who is that number 15 guy in the bantamweight division. It's a good fight. It's an exciting one. I like it for the main card of a UFC fight night. Christos Giagos versus Nurullo Aliev. Christos is kind of a gatekeeper to show how legit you are in the lightweight division. Nurullo Aliev's undefeated, up-and-coming guy from Tajikistan. I believe this is a favorable matchup for him and a good step up. Not even a step up. Rafael Alves is very, very legit. But it's a good another win to add to your resume, especially as a young guy like Nurullo Aliev earlier on in his career. So why not do that one? Nurullo and Christos Giagos. Next one is going to be Ricky Glenn and Manuel Torres. A little bit blurry pictures here, but it's okay. Ricky Glenn just got knocked out badly, but he's got solid power in his hands as well. He kind of just got clipped by Christos Giagos there. Who's a fighter that could actually clip Ricky Glenn as well? That's coming off a good win in his last fight inside the UFC. Well, that's going to be Manuel Torres. And I believe Manuel Torres versus Ricky Glenn is a very, very fun fight. That's what we're going to do. We got Jeremiah Wells versus the winner of Chaos Williams and Rolando Bedoya. I believe Chaos Williams wins, and I would love to see Chaos meet Chaos, Jeremiah Wells in the welterweight division and the main card of a UFC fight night and go to war. And if Jeremiah wins that one, then I'll start talking about maybe him versus Vicente Luque, maybe him versus Jack Della Maddalena, these other solid, powerful strikers inside of the top 15. But considering he got rocked and dropped twice by Matt Simmonsberger, I think he needs one more fight outside the top 15 to really prove himself and prove that he's worthy of that top 15 fights. Next one is Matt Simmonsberger. I mean, he got 2 knockdowns on Jeremiah Wells. He's very up and down in his career. But Nicholas Dalby's riding a little bit of a hot streak in the welterweight division. He beat D-Rod recently as well. Did lose to Tim Means, but I mean, he's on a win streak. Simmonsberger's coming off a loss. Both very, very solid strikers. Simmonsberger got the power. Dalby's got the movement and the karate style and things like that. Why not? Nicholas Dalby, Matthew Simmonsberger is a very, very fun fight. We got Yasmine Lucindo. And I was kind of debating back and forth who in the world to give Yasmine Lucindo. Then I was thinking, we got this fight on June 3rd between Elise Reed and Jinyu Frey. About a month away, I believe Yasmine could wait a little bit to give her a good step up in the UFC strawweight division. Either a veteran like Jinyu Frey, which I would favor Yasmine Lucindo very, very much against, and is a good veteran name to have on your resume, or a former CFFC champ in Elise Reed. Either one of those fights would be pretty solid in my opinion, and a good step up ranking-wise for Yasmine Lucindo. If she wins that one more fight, and she's pretty close to the top 15 of the strawweight division. We got Brogan Walker. We're gonna cut her from the UFC. I'm sorry, we're cutting her from the UFC. That's just what is going to happen. Bobby Green. He did lose to Drakkar Klose many, many years ago. It was like 3-4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago that they fought for the first time, but it was a very, very solid fight. Drakkar, he's on a 2-fight win streak. He's been looking to get someone inside the top 15. Was trying to fight Diego Ferreira, was trying to fight some other guys. A lot of these fights getting canceled. Bobby Green and Drakkar Klose always make for exciting fights. I would love a rematch here. I mean, they're both right outside of the top 15, and it'd be an exciting fight. Bobby Green, Drakkar Klose. Again, very, very blurry. I'm sorry about that one, but you already know. Jared Gordon versus Paddy Pimblett 2. Bruno Silva versus Joe Pyfer. Bruno did lose to Gerald Meerschaert by submission, where Joe Pyfer went out there and starched Gerald Meerschaert. They're both right outside of the top 15. But Bruno does not deserve a fight in the top 15. Neither does Joe Pyfer, considering Joe is only like 2-0 in the UFC, and considering Bruno is 1-2 in his last 3 fights. If they fight each other and Bruno is able to win, maybe you could give him a top 15 fight. And Joe Pyfer, if he's able to beat a guy like Bruno Silva and knock him out, do something Alex Pereira was unable to do, you might give Joe Pyfer a shot inside of that top 15. So we're going to do Joe Pyfer, Bruno Silva in a banger of a middleweight fight. This might be a little bit confusing for y'all, but Brad Tavares is a gatekeeper of the middleweight division, and we have 2 up-and-comers that I love to match up with Brad Tavares, and those 2 guys are Mikhail Oleg, however you say that last name, it's such a weird last name. He's right here at the top, and then we got Bruno Ferreira. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is going to fight Caio Borralho in a week. If he's able to win that fight, able to knock out Caio Borralho, maybe even if he loses to Caio Borralho, whatever the case may be, I would love to see Mikhail Oleg versus Brad Tavares. That would be a very, very fun fight. 2 high-level strikers with a heck of a lot of power in their hands. That's a banger in my opinion. And also another guy that is super exciting and super powerful in the middleweight division that just destroyed Gregory Rodriguez on short notice and is going to fight Abdulrazak Alhassan. I mean, Bruno Ferreira is also a fun fight that we had with Brad Tavares. So, Brad Tavares versus either Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, if he's able to win, against Caio Borralho, or Abdulrazak Alhassan if he beats Bruno Ferreira, or Bruno Ferreira if he beats Abdulrazak Alhassan. Any of these 3 matchups make a lot of sense in my opinion, because they kind of be right around the same rankings-wise. Brad Tavares on a little bit of a losing streak here, and these guys are up and coming, coming off some really, really solid wins in the middleweight division. That does sound like a very, very fun fight. Next one, Curtis Blaydes versus Stipe Miocic. We're not giving Stipe the title shot. I'm sorry to say, we're going to give the 2 good wrestlers of the heavyweight division to each other as a 5-round co-main event of a UFC pay-per-view. And that just sounds like a very, very fun fight to be had, because at this point, Sergei Pavlovich is just more deserving of the fight with Jon Jones. So we're going to do Sergei Pavlovich versus Jon Jones for later this year, UFC 290, whatever, 295, 294. I don't care what card, but this is the fight that needs to be made next, is Pavlovich versus Jon Jones, and Curtis Blaydes versus Stipe Miocic. If Stipe wins, and if Jon Jones wins, that'll prove that Stipe and Jon Jones are still able to beat the younger generation and the still, up-and-coming type of guys like Blaydes and Sergei Pavlovich, and still prove that they're at the top of the heavyweight division. And at that point, once they really cement where they are in the heavyweight division, if all goes according to plan for the UFC and Jones beats Sergei and Stipe beats Curtis Blaydes, then we could do Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. But at this point, I would love to see Sergei versus Jon Jones. I believe there's any guy in the heavyweight division right now that can legitimately go out there and beat Jon Jones. That guy, it's going to have to be Sergei Pavlovich. His takedown defense is super, super legit. He's very, very precise with his striking, and the power is very, very amazing as well. So I'm going to have Pavlovich Jones, Stipe versus Curtis Blaydes, and all the other fights that I talked about in this video. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and comment if you agree with these matchups. I believe most of these fights that I mentioned are exciting fights. There's not a lot of boring fights that I've mentioned on this one, and a lot of them make sense. A lot of them do make sense ranking-wise. Veteran-wise, I mean, up-and-comers fighting the veterans coming off a loss. A lot of these fights do make sense. I know a lot of you guys might disagree on Sergei versus Jon Jones. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen next. They'll probably still do Jones versus Stipe next, but I'm saying what I want fights to make next. What should happen next is Sergei versus Jon Jones. I highly doubt that's what's going to happen, but that's what I think should happen. But what do y'all think? Sergei versus Jon Jones in the heavyweight division? Put your thoughts down below.